What's up, YouTube? This is your boy Jay. I hope you all are doing well. Hey, Hershey, what's up? Can you all hear me? First of all, um, I do have the CNN commentary on mute for now until the debate start. So I will turn that up as soon as it starts. So for right now, though, I'm going to put this right here so we have it. So that's how it'll. Did I stop sharing it, Lord? Hold on for a minute. So we'll have it when we're ready. But right now, I hope you all are doing well. Hey, what's up, Melanin Malone and Catherine and Cutloy and um, yeah, I'm ready. I am so excited about this. So we'll see what's going on tonight. So I'm pretty excited. And what's up, Nicole Allen? So I know a lot of people may be doing a lot of other stuff, but I think it's extremely important tonight that we get ready for this debate. Like I told you all, I'm come on early. I got my coffee ready. That's some good coffee. Thank you, Hershey. Mm, that coffee is good, baby. My God, today. So, but I'm ready to go, and I hope you all are as well. Um, Jay Wilson, Grown Folk TV, and Ghetto Fighting. Like I said, I'm on this politics stuff tonight. I'm gonna let these people fight, but what Grown Folk and Ghetto Intellect does, don't have nothing to do with what's getting ready to go on tonight. hmm And I kind of knew they were fighting. But again, it is what it is. So we're gonna talk about some things. Like I said, um, tonight is going to be the first debate of 2024. It is being held a little earlier than debates are usually held. It's going to be, of course, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. So nobody gets a pass. You know, I'm gonna tell it like it is, with no chaser. So, if you know, I'm gonna tell it. You know who I'm gonna vote for, but I'm still gonna tell it. Well, it's gonna be really interesting tonight, and thank you, Melanin. But it's gonna be really interesting tonight because once they finish their minute, the microphones are gonna be cut off. So it won't be anyone getting in the mic and interrupting. Hopefully, Donald Trump doesn't pull any shenanigans. We will see. I hope Joe does what he did for the State of the Union address. That's the kind of Joe I want to see. I want to see cussing, fighting Joe. That's the Joe I want to see. That's the Joe I want to see. So it should be interesting on tonight. Well, we're going to see. We are going to see. Both of these guys are up in age, and that shouldn't have anything to do with it, but we're going to see. And we're going to see. You know, I hope both of their minds are right. But regardless, I know who my vote is going to. You know, I'm not going to tell y'all on here because you got to make your decision. But so as soon as 8 o'clock hits, so probably about maybe 3 minutes before, we'll do what we need to do. But you all are saying that Grown Folk TV and Ghetto Intellect are fighting. Now, let me tell you what I did hear with those two. I did hear Grown Folk TV said somebody wasn't paying their child support and that they were behind in their mortgage and stuff. So I heard a lot of that. So I don't know if that's true or not. But baby, the girls, the boys, or whatever you want to call them, they fighting tonight. They are really fighting tonight. So that's what I heard. I'm not sure. That's the little bit that I did gather. And I'm like, oh my goodness, they were going for the juggler. Hmm. Catherine, I don't really know what to believe. And again, to be honest, it is what it is. We got more important things on tonight. So we're going to be looking at this State of the Union together. And we have 11 minutes until this event starts. I don't really know what to expect. I know Joe Biden knows that uh, he has to do a job tonight. And if Joe Biden does what he did at the State of the Union, it's going to be really great. I think Joe will do well with policy because he will do well. I think that he needs to be ready for the border situation. He needs to be ready for inflation, not so much the economy, but the inflation. Um, I hope he really mentioned that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. So that's going to be interesting. Grown folk pulled receipts on ghetto. What kind of receipts he pulled? Hershey. I didn't see any receipts. Hmm. What receipts did he pull? I can be a little messy before the debate starts. Look, I can be a little messy before the debate starts. So I don't know what he pulled. Hershey, what receipts, Hershey? What receipts? I'm trying to figure out what receipts. Hershey said there was receipts. Okay, how well do you feel? Okay, well, how do you feel about the fallout of ghetto binary and MBK? Didn't know about it, but knew it would happen. I knew that would happen because, again, um, I just know. Yeah, I just know. I just know. And I hope we see what's going on. I hope we see just what's going on. This is why I don't want nothing to do with that. These people are not even loyal to themselves, much less to uh, a sector. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. What's up, Simply Pink and Green? Apollonia, stop it. Stop it, Apollonia. Stop it. You see, that's how real tea look. Yeah, real tea. Anyway, Apollonia, stop playing. Supposedly, Ghetto is pulling back now because he is being redoxed and his wife is being harassed. He owed back child support, something about unpaid mortgage. My God. Well, Queen of South London, congratulations. I hope you're not in South London. Okay. Mm, I guess it is a lot going on. My God, today. Oh, come on, Simply Pink and Green. This is a serious matter. Oh, God, yes. Thank you, Simply. You know I weigh 900 pounds. Mm, Simply Pink and Green. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I wore these glasses tonight so I can see y'all. Okay, y'all, we got now Queen, Queen, Queen. I'm gonna time you out. Don't do nothing silly, because I'm gonna delete your comment, Queen. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna delete your comment. I'm not gonna block you, but I'm gonna delete your comment. We're not doing that today. Hey, Juju. Thank you, Simply Pink and Green, girl. That gonna go to my Vega money. That gonna be my Vega money. Okay, Queen, I'm getting ready to block you. I'm getting ready to block you, baby. Because this is my platform. And I don't owe you any explanation. I'm just telling you, keep it cool. Okay, I'm just telling you, keep it cool. Okay, we 5 minutes in, y'all. Oh, did somebody say that? Who said that, Catherine? Thank you, Creative Queen. Who said that, Catherine? Who said that? You said, wait a minute. You said fuel makeup. That must be Skillet. Okay. Skillet looked like she should have been doing that. Ooh, Jesus. Mm-mm-mm. Baby, these girls be doing them. All right, y'all. We got 4 minutes. So, all right, Queen, you're out. You're out. Good night. I'm gonna go ahead and ban you. You're out. Oh, I hate when people do that. I hate when people have to get banned. Here we are. We haven't even listened to the debate yet, and people already starting. So I'm gonna take you out. Hey, CDP, how you doing? Y'all, I'm about to close these curtains in a few minutes. Oh, this sun is blazing. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Hey, Ebony. I'm a little nervous about this debate, too, but we going to do it. So let me get ready. We got 3 minutes, you all. So I'll turn it on actually when they start. Thank you, Cosmic Girl. I appreciate that. Oh, I heard that. I heard it. I did hear that. I heard that little piece. Yeah, it was interesting. I heard that little piece. All of this fighting, all this violence. Ooh, come on, eyebrows. I need to get it. I need to get them cleaned up before I start looking Indian. Okay, before I start looking Indian over here. Okay. Mm. All right, we got 2 minutes. So let me get ready. So we'll be ready in a few minutes. Oh Lord, it's gonna be interesting. What's up, Swag Found? But watch it with us, PDP. You can watch it with us. Well, I hope so too. We'll find out. You know I'm gonna talk about it. Good or bad. I'm gonna talk about it. Girl, I've been drinking my water. I've been drinking my water, my circle water. Girl, you see my girl? I be using that Trader Joe's all on my face and stuff. I guess he got away. Girl, I guess he got away. Oh, it's time. It's 1 minute. So give me a minute.
Our special coverage live from Atlanta right here on NBC News Now. We want you to stay right here, also as well, because from here, we're going to pick up that simulcast. Lester Holt, Savannah Guthrie, they're going to anchor our coverage as we go into that debate. And again, it's going to be a big night. If you love politics, if you love this country, if you're concerned about who you're going to vote for, you want to watch right now. So stay right there. The first presidential debate is going to begin in just moments. As they give me the 10-second count, this is called stretching. I'm going to stretch just a little bit as we get there. Live look at the spin room right now. We're going to take you into that debate in about 8 seconds. Stay right here. The first presidential debate. It begins.
Tonight, a showdown unlike any other in recent history.
Joe Biden and Donald Trump face to face for the first time in 4 years.
Both men on stage for a historic debate and a pivotal rematch with the White House at stake.
From NBC News, here are Lester Holt and Savannah Guthrie.
Good evening and welcome to the first presidential debate between President Biden and former President Trump, hosted by CNN.
These two men have debated in the past, of course, but this time is going to look a lot different.
The debate is being held at a TV studio after the candidates bypassed the commission that hosted the debate since the 1980s.
So there is no audience tonight, and the microphones will be muted after a candidate's speaking time is up.
The debate expected to run 90 minutes. There will be 2 commercial breaks this evening.
We're going to bring you full analysis here on NBC once the debate is over, but it is about to begin. CNN about to broadcast the presidential debate. Let's listen.
Case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the 2 candidates tonight. Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determines positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Right, Joe, get across the stage.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Oh, Lord.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out in the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos. Literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we found ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing. And they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a four-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
No.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily
I mean,
allowing
this is the thing.
emergency
Joe Biden is
abortions to
coming with
continue in
facts, but
Idaho,
Trump is
despite that
he's
state's
clear,
restrictive ban.
he's
Former
talking.
President Trump,
It's deep.
you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they were talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was, an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Trump is just talking.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're at a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
Oh my God, they just cut them all. Oh my God, they just cut them all.
To come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous.
Oh my God, they just cut him all.
The most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these
killers
are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted it brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it.
I don't think
everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back.
But
I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby
Oh
in the
God.
9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
You're lying. That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? In fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers, significantly. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think.
Oh my God! This is what Trump is good at doing.
We had the safest border in the history of our country.
This is what Trump is good at doing.
All he had to do is leave it. All he had to do is leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere, all over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in Carolina.
President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed 3, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person coming in his administration, killed 3 American soldiers, killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, or we have to get them out fast, because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all. And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved, choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one.
For
example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
Yeah, the 4-star general standing to your side was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, a president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine, never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything, no money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I never said that.
For 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so there are 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent $100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting you got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have a mission in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. Are you going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time? And I said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible.
January the 6th.
Which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about. He goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say
to
those voters
who back to the question.
Violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say. But she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming and they left
Talking about
immediately.
January 6th.
What he said about
Washington.
this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing, the Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right.
Wow.
We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now.
Woo!
And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about?
That's what I'm saying now.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official at DOJ into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam, and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him, they said, what do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields, carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? And this is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out, because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated. We saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Hey, man, let me tell y'all how I feel right now. Look, I'm going to be honest. Joe, what you did second half, you should have did for the first half. Let me tell you something. Joe, you horse. Somebody needs to give you a Ricola right now. Also, you need to work on your facials because you all like that. You all like that. Okay? I mean, and your horse. Now, let me say this. Donald Trump seems very confident, but he gaslight and he lied. Okay? We've all seen what happened on January 6th. We all seen what happened and what you said in Charlottesville. And Donald Trump is a good case in how these YouTube be set to people, be gaslighting folk, and how these Uber boys be gaslighting people. And I mean, we can see it. So I think Joe has good policies. I think what he's saying is spot on. But baby, you need a Ricola and you need to get a Red Bull and get your scruff, okay? Because Donald Trump is gaslighting. but he's strong gaslight. And again, he is convincing those people who he needs to convince. And you looking, and both of y'all old as dirt, okay? But Joe, you better come on up. And then Joe's stuttering problem is coming on. You didn't talk to your stuttering therapist before you got up there? Okay? The rain in Spain stays in the plane. Okay? I need you to stop stuttering. Okay? Now your message is right. But your facial expressions and how you standing and looking is all wrong. And you need to be able to complete a thought. Oh my goodness. Come on, Joe. Now I'm still knowing what I'm gonna vote. Because this gaslighting gonna kill somebody. And if you didn't think we didn't see what happened on January the 6th, you got to be crazy. Because I was seeing it. And I never forget, because we were in a seminar dealing with diversity, equity, inclusion. And we had somebody who was not diverse, equal, and inclusive. And baby, we went right on off. And I said, you see what's happening? I said, now those are black people that would have got shot. So I saw what happened on January the 6th. But Joe, you need to do better. Because Trump is a great gaslighter. Trump is acting like this is an apprentice. And he did that. He danced around them convictions. He danced around Joe's questions. Now, Joe really hit him with them 34 counts, cheating on his wife and all of that stuff. He hit him. He hit him hard with that. Okay, let's see what's going on, baby. They got to do better. Trump is insulting Joe. He looking at Joe. And so, Joe, you need to do better. I mean, your message is right. And we know Trump is gaslighting, but Trump is trying to be a convincing gaslighter. Okay, let's get back to it. Oh, I'm just tired of this. All right, y'all. Whoa.
Live from Georgia. Let's talk about persistent challenges you both faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while Black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals who had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt. All the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs now. It could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking Black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again. And they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the Black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically Black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are Blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers.
Oh, my God.
He's lost much of the Black population because he's done a horrible job for Black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But when you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet, it's a disaster.
38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever.
Oh, my God.
And we were using all forms of energy, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage.
Immaculate clean water.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. In history, we find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have those. They don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money. But now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He must undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones who was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to? The United States can't get its pollution under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people to learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
so every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
Yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where we talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 towards their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He could look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates you talked about being phony,
I can't allow you to do
Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good.
Oh my God!
That's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it.
Oh my
God!
Really
highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is,
oh my God,
he doesn't fire people. He never fired people.
I've
never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot.
Oh my God!
Because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI.
Oh my God! Answer the
they were no good.
Question.
Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now, all of a sudden, he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We are the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody, number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history, one through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did for virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden.
Thank you, President Biden, for at least answer the damn question.
Take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things. They rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad.
My God.
And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us.
My God.
He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times.
The
he wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants
what about child care?
So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. God. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariff. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that were imported. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden.
You lost.
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 4 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border were it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low, because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him, because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter. I think a good guy. And he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies and our those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, who he sends love letters to, and Putin, et cetera, they don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I used them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 35 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is.
Woo, come on now, that's the read. That's the read.
I got my handicap when I was vice president.
That's the read.
6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag.
Oh.
Think you can do it?
Oh. That's the biggest lie. He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know, how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Let's
not act like children.
Let's
not act like children.
To a specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made,
yes or no?
I believe the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because of our own safety is at stake. And again, You want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if
Russia, God, this is rich.
They took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were president.
Trump, the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
Woo! Come on, Joe.
We'll be right back.
Come on, Joe.
With more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
Okay, so let me give y'all my opinion on this. First of all, Lord Jesus. That's all I can say. Lord Jesus. Joe, reaction and response is slow. I'm not going to lie about that. But Joe is giving some nasty reads this second half. And now we're seeing that Donald Trump is not good on policy. He's not good on anything. He's avoiding the questions. He's talking about he's the great president and all of this. I'm sorry. I would rather go with slow and know what they're doing with good people around them than I'm bragging. I got to do this and this without any evidence. And I'm telling you all, I'm gonna be honest. I'm unhappy about this whole situation. Joe has good policies, but the only reason why Joe is running is because this joker. That's the only reason. Joe don't want to run no more, but he knows what will happen if this man gets in the office. Then you got another man who's saying that he is not trying to run for office because of Joe, but we know that ain't true. We know that he needs some extension time so he won't go to jail. So we screwed both ways. My thing is this: take the poison that will give you a chance to live another day. Because, honey, this poison over here is going to kill you like instant. Okay? And all I'm going to say, too, is I'm really mad at Joe because he should have been talking about that border situation where Donald Trump torpedoed it. He said it, but he didn't really get to the nitty gritty of why this thing wasn't passed. I mean, Joe is doing a good job, but I don't think he's aggressive. That fire is not there. He's getting the words out. Now, he did give some shade, or it was some shade thrown, but Trump knows how to gaslight, to pick. Now, Joe got him back saying, you just can't accept loss. Joe said, you know, you tell people who you are, but we see who you are. Now, Joe is reading, but Trump is a gaslighter. And I'm telling you, he is treating this like The Apprentice. And if you're not a wise consumer, you will eat that up. You notice this man is not answering questions. It's getting deep. Hold on for a minute, you all. It's getting very deep. And people are not answering questions. It's getting really deep. He does know how to manipulate. And y'all, I'm not saying that this is Joe's best performance. Okay, hold on for a minute. We're getting ready to get back because this is really not his best performance.
And Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump.
It's being hosted by CNN. And at the conclusion of this debate, in less than 10 minutes or so, we're hoping you'll join us for analysis of tonight's key moments.
Our team of political experts will break down how this night could shake up the presidential race over the next 5 months. Back to Atlanta now.
Okay.
Candidates to deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare us to be able to negotiate drug pricing with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along. It's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you. because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get, when you're terminally ill, now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now.
Okay, you all, look. Let's look at that closing argument. Joe, again, I don't know, his stuttering is coming back. It's not the strongest closing argument, but let me say this. Joe told us about his policies, what he wants to do, what he will do. Trump criticized Joe Biden, but offered no policies and talked about what he did do. One talking about what he did in the past, and one is talking about what I'm planning to do in the future. And again, I am not ecstatic about these two candidates, but I truly believe that Joe is running because of who is running at this particular point. I believe Trump is running to stay his behind out of jail. I don't hear any policies coming from him. I didn't hear anything. I heard a lot of avoiding the questions. Now, granted, Joe did not come off strong. He needed some call drops. Now, let me tell y'all something though. This is the deal that I want y'all to hear though. It goes back to the Kennedy and Nixon debate. Nixon seemed unhinged. His facial expressions were all messed up. And Kennedy was cool under pressure. I think if there is another debate, which I doubt, but if there's another debate, baby, Joe, you need to work on your facial expressions. You need to make sure your voice is strong and clear before you get on that stage. Now, Joe came back that second half with some serious reads. In the second half, I think Donald Trump was weak because it dealt with policies and things he knew nothing about. I think Trump came out strong in the beginning. He always has that apprentice type thing. He knows how to operate and manipulate those cameras, but he gaslights. And if anybody has any sense, we know that the man gaslights. I'm the best at this, and I had the best record. Because, again, he is focusing on his base. But this is what I'm going to say. Take the poison that will let you live long enough for a cure. Don't take that poison that's going to kill you in 2 to 3 days. Am I satisfied with this debate? Hell no. You got one leader who has very good policies and really seems like he's looking out for the people, but he's older. He's not like that, but I trust that person. Then you got someone who is very silver tongue, but no substance whatsoever. No substance. No substance. And it almost reminds me of voting for a school president. You have the athlete who really knows nothing. And I'm not saying all athletes, but I've seen this time and time again. But people like him because, he says some things I want to hear, but no substance. And then you got that nerdy person who wears braces that is not popular, but would probably do a better job. And I want us to really listen because, again, Trump did not answer those questions about the election, nothing about opioids, nothing about the child care situation. And Joe always circled back to it. He always circled back to it. And so I'm saying that. And then the black jobs. What are black jobs? What are these black jobs? Can I apply for them black jobs? I'm glad Joe didn't say black jobs. I mean, really. Then we start going back and forth on this golf game. These. He was acting. Donald Trump was acting like a petulant little kid. I do believe that Joe needs to be sharper. I'm not gonna lie about that. He was stuttering, and then he was forgetting stuff. But his policies are good, and I would rather have somebody who really has a strong mind to know policy and may stutter than someone who's up there talking but not knowing a damn thing that they're talking about. Black jobs. Now, I know that there are jobs that black people used to do. Black people used to do a lot of home construction and landscaping. Black people used to do a lot of work far as being farm workers. But we don't do those jobs anymore. And this is the gag. This is the real gag. That former president hired all of those people who used to do those, I guess, black jobs, and they were undocumented. He cut them and went on. And now in places like Alabama and the state of Florida, they don't have enough people to do those jobs that people are taking. Know what's going on out there, you all. And Democrats, y'all gonna have to come up. Y'all gonna really have to prop Joe Biden up like Moses in the Red Sea. Y'all gonna have to prop his hands up, boo. Because this is a mess. But I'm being real about it. Donald Trump did not answer that question about opioids. Joe Biden answered the question about opioids. He did not answer the question about the child care and that. He didn't. He didn't. Trump just gave me bully and ignorance because he really did not know. With the NATO question and the Paris Accord for climate change, crazy. With the Ukraine thing, notice I can get them out. Before I even get elected, I will get them out. I can fix everything. It's always about I can fix everything. And both of them did get on my nerves. I'm not lying. Both of them did get on my nerves. And see, I'm honest about that. Both of them got on my nerves. Joe with all that stuttering and that hoarseness and stuff. They could have gave you a Ricola or something. Okay? I mean, a nebulizer or something. I mean, but it really pissed me off. But I can't hate that man for policy. I can't hate that man for answering the question. Donald Trump was really trying to get under his skin, especially with the Hunter Biden. But I will say Joe really hit back with them 34 counts and all of that stuff. And Donald Trump had to come back to it. But he made great points. He was hoarse. Trump was loud, articulate, but wrong and gaslighting to me. He's a gaslighter. Joe was giving him a nasty look about that COVID because we know what he did. We know he was asking people about that bleach and not having people getting mandated and stuff. And then he had people to lose credibility in the CDC. We know what happened on January 6th, and he really did not answer that question either about January 6th. Joe, them angles and them facial expressions, you're going to have to work on that, Papa. Now, I'm going to tell you, Trump and some of them nonverbals was getting it on. Especially when Joe was forgetting stuff, Trump be like, see? And again, it's the nonverbals as well as the verbals. Now, I am going to say, though, honey, when it came to the reads, though, baby, Joe started reading. Joe started reading in the second half. He started reading. Now, I'm like, oh, okay. And he was coming back. Now, I'm going to tell you what, though. At the beginning, though, they may have been getting equal time, but I think Joe was trying to follow the rules, and Trump was pressing it to see how far he can go. And y'all got to realize that Trump has more to lose than Joe Biden. See, Joe Biden ain't going to jail if he loses, unless Trump gets in there and start being that dictator. But Trump has 34 counts. He is a convicted felon with still more and more court proceedings to go. Johnny Cage, where are you getting that information? Where are you getting that information? Because I live in a Texas town, and it ain't no black community centers on the Rio Grande border. And let me give you this, Johnny Cage. There was a church, a major big church in San Antonio that was going to help those immigrants. And honey, they had a whole fit. And the church decided not to do it. That's Second Baptist Church in San Antonio. Off of Houston. Oh, I can't think of the street now. God dang it. But it's Second Baptist Church. No, it's on YouTube. It's not going to do me. Because let me tell you something. I live in Texas, and there are no black border towns in Texas. So please make sure you get your information right. I hate misinformation. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to go with who I'm going to go with. I think that Donald Trump is a gaslighter. And it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on. I'm going to watch CNN tonight to see what they are saying. I'm going to watch Fox. Oh, God. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Hey, what's going on? We think very much domestically, and anybody in the military will tell you that we need Ukraine to do what they need to do. We need our butts in NATO because it's deeper. And I know people are saying all that money should be coming over here, but no, that's just like taking the military bases out of South Korea because, why are we there? I think that wealthy people need to pay their fair share. That's what I think. I think tax cuts not going to help because that has always happened and it's never worked. And I'm just being real. That's right, Cutloy. Just like the governor in Florida can send those people to San Antonio to fly them to New York. Yeah. So y'all look, this debate was just interesting to me. It was very interesting to me. I'm not pleased with Joe's performance. I just think that he was hoarse. He was stuttering. Great policies, great answers, but the delivery wasn't there. I think Trump had great delivery, but he was gaslighting in line. So again, it's the draw for me. I do think that Joe came on strong that second half when he started reading, and he really got under Trump's skin when he started talking about that loss, and he couldn't take it because he lost. Now that deals with his ego, and Joe hit there. Out of all of them, I'm gonna go with the person who has policy, person who has respect, the person who's not threatening people and doing all kind of crazy stuff. I wish there was somebody else, but this is what I've been dealt with, and I am not going to. First of all, I'm looking at the Supreme Court, and I'm seeing what's going on there. I'm looking at the Congress, the House, and the Senate. I'm looking at people not working in a bipartisan manner. Shannon, that's it right there, Shannon. You ain't never lied. Thank you, Keisha. Yeah. But Keisha, I'd rather have slow truth than a fast lie. That's the whole deal right there. Shannon, right there. I would rather have slow truth than a fast lie. And Zara, you're right. I'm always going to vote my own interest. I learned a lot. Let me tell you something. Joe Biden says you don't know what the hell you're talking about. The man did not answer the question on opioids, the helping the parents with child care. He didn't answer the bulk of the questions. Even with the age situation, Joe was talking about policies. And the closing argument, he didn't answer January 6th. No, he didn't answer about the Charlottesville, or if there was power, if he lost, would he cede? And again, and then Joe had to come back and say, there's no evidence to what you're saying. None whatsoever. No court in the country gave you anything. Now, we did hear you say, if you can find me 11,000 more votes. We heard that. But those closing arguments was enough for me. Again, slow truth. But I would rather deal with that than a fast lie. Johnny Cage, I am. Because let me say this, even though inflation is high, job creation is plenty. And baby, it ain't no shortage of jobs in San Antonio. Okay? So, I'm sorry, I can't go with somebody who ain't give me no policy. Now, let's go back to those closing arguments again. We had the cleanest water. Everything is the cleanest. Oh, Lord. And it was frustrating because he wasn't answering the questions. Now let me go back to the closing arguments. Joe gave us what I am going to do. This is what I will do. If you are elected, what will you do? That was the question. Joe said, we will continue to do this. We will do this. We will do this. We will do that. Immaculate air. But then Trump gets his closing statements, and instead of telling the people what he's going to do in his policy, first of all, he tries to attack and criticize Joe Biden. Then, with the little time he does have left, he talks about what he did in the past. And the question was not, what have you done? That wasn't the question. The question was not, what have you done? The question was, what will you do? And we didn't get anything that he will do. All we heard was criticism of Joe Biden and what he has done. I want y'all to listen to that, because this person, they don't got a clue. They don't have no policies. What they want to do is give people that Project 2025. So I'm going to tell you, y'all, tonight, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The whole thing has been attack Joe Biden, make Joe Biden look bad. He's the worst president ever. And Joe Biden backed up his stuff with proof. With proof. But I heard nothing about policy. Nothing about policy. Nothing about policy. Nothing. Nothing about policy. So I got Shannon Carter's statement up there because I think that's the biggest takeaway from me. I'd rather have slow truth than a fast lie. And I would rather have a man who ends with policy and what he will do than a man who deals with criticism and what I have done. And that was not the question. What you have done doesn't have nothing to do with what you will do. So y'all, thank y'all for coming. Hit that like button. It has been eye-opening. I'm going to follow up with watching CNN. Baby, it was a hot mess tonight. Donald Trump, fast lie, boom, but no policies. No policies. Where are these black jobs? Let me drop the link because people may have something to say. Baby, these black jobs. I want to know where these black jobs at. Okay, and how much these black jobs paying? I didn't know it was some black jobs. Where these black jobs at? And let me say this to you all. I don't have a problem with opposing views, but I do have a problem with misinformation. I do have a problem with misinformation. As you notice, I didn't take anything out that says I'm not liking Joe. I didn't have people like put Biden 2024 in or Trump. That's not what we were doing. Yeah. Cosmic Girl, it was. And let me say this, Cosmic Girl, I'm not saying it was perfect, but it showed me that in the midst of it all, I'm still going to go with the slow truth rather than the fast lie. I'm not saying that I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy any of it, but I see what's going on. And I'm with Shannon. I would rather go with slow truth than fast lie. And my thing is this, my vote ain't changing. My vote is going to be the same way it was. I don't see anything that has turned the needle. All I saw is more deflection, more gaslighting. And again, if you are a Trump person, you may have you think that Trump did well because he came out strong. But I think Trump was really hurt in that second half, especially when it came to those 34 counts, especially when it came to policy. This man had no clue. But the people like him because he attacked Joe. and he did his spiel. If you like Biden and if you like policy, that's where you're going to go. And you knew he threw them Hispanic people in there as well. So,
you see who I got as my avatar today. He's a better. That's Rick James. And after seeing that debate, he's a better candidate than either one of those idiots.
But and you know what, Uncle Claude, I am not disagreeing with you, and I get it. But my thing is, I don't want us to get in a situation where we don't vote and we get the worst of the two, and the next thing you know, we are suffering for it, and then people gonna get their passports and start moving to Canada for 4 years. I'm not satisfied with either one. But like I said, I'm gonna choose the poison that I know is gonna give me a chance to live, and I can live from or get some medicine, because I'm not gonna take that stuff that's gonna kill me in 3 days.
We've been doing that for 400 years.
We have. Right now, I look, let me say this, Uncle Claude, I ain't trying to be funny, but I haven't been living 400 years, but what I am concerned about now is the present and the future. And my thing is, I think that we got some serious decisions to make, and we're not in a situation now where it's time to get to be an activist. I think that we need to hold people to the fire. And let me tell you something too. I'm mad at Jim Clyburn, because I don't think Jim Clyburn did enough to say, okay, we got you elected, and we need you to do X, Y, Z. And what really made me mad is they did an expose on Clyburn, and I don't care. I talk about Democrats as well as Republicans, and it's all about him and nobody else. And see, I think we get these people in, and it's my fault and no more. And they look good from the outside, but on the inside, it's a whole different story. So I understand what you're saying. I'm not satisfied with none of this. But if we don't vote, and if the person gets in, then we only have ourselves to blame.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but let's be fair. This country is doomed unless something drastic happens. I mean, we saw one guy who is the current president who can barely keep his eyes open. Now, I understand that he did come with real ideas and real,
which he did.
And that's fair, because let's face it, and I get it. And I'm the first person to say that by no circumstances should the orange-faced person even sniff the White House, because we might not. And it's ironic, because remember, he's the actual person who used the term, "Oh, you might not have a country anymore." Well, if you put this bastard back in there, we might not have the U.S. of A. anymore. And he's talking about making America great and all this. All he's done is give us slogans and BS. He did absolutely. He didn't answer one real question with any real facts.
No.
So, and I'm not one of these guys who's going to try and convince you to vote for Trump. But at the same token, listen, and you basically said it right. Is it the slow death or the quick death?
And let me say this too, Uncle Clyde. Now, let's not forget Ronald Reagan. Nancy Reagan was running that White House. That man had full onset Alzheimer's. And Nancy Reagan was running that White House. So were we in doom? Hell yeah. But see, we didn't know that. And they kept that under wraps. So let's not think that because at least Biden could get on the stage and he was slow, but at least he answered the questions and he could formulate and answer the questions. We have a man who, but didn't answer the questions. So again, we had Nancy Reagan running that White House because Ronald already onset Alzheimer's, and they kept that very hush. So again, we could have been doomed right there. I'm just saying. To be fair,
listen, I didn't disagree. I was there during I remember the Reagan era very well.
Yeah,
I mean, believe me, and let's face it, we can go one step further. George W. Bush didn't really run the White House. Dick Cheney did, but that's another chapter for another day. Also,
see, I look at a lot of stuff, and come on. Like that lady said, I would rather have slow and thoughtful and truthful than slow and fast and lying. Now we saw how that man handled that COVID situation. And let me say this, I had a brother to die from COVID because people were playing with this. And then you got this man talking about bleach and all of this foolishness. And then he made a mockery out of the CDC and all of these people who are doing research. And then he doesn't even realize of the January 6th thing. He sat there. And then you try to blame it on Nancy Pelosi. Are you serious? I mean, no accountability. No nothing. I'm sitting here listening to this guy. I'm like, are you serious?
Well, I'm still looking for the good people in Charlottesville that, so you can't. That's the sad part. We can't. We really should not be even taking this man serious.
Yeah.
The simple fact that he's actually running for president again, it lets you know how disgusting, how far off this country is.
Yeah.
And this should be, let's be fair, this should be a wake-up call that, and I've been saying this for years. If we don't get our stuff together and try to form our own party, we're going to keep getting this regurgitated BS that we're getting from these politicians. Because
Uncle Todd, that's good, and I hear you, but
how's the CDC work?
That's a good.
Black Caucus. How's that worked out?
Yeah, but my thing is this, Uncle Clyde, but we don't vote. We don't even vote for our local stuff. This is why our schools are such a shamble and our people get the short end of the stick because we don't even go to school board meetings. We don't even vote for those local elections. We don't even vote for those people where judges got to be appointed and stuff. We just look at this federal stuff and think we doing stuff, but we are not politically astute. And the sad part about it is so many of our people in Mississippi and Alabama fought for these voting rights and everything. Let me tell you something. I vote for every time I get a chance, I vote. I'm looking at school board, and I used Ballotpedia, I believe, Ballotpedia, and I find out what these people are about. I want to know what their stance is on XYZ and XYZ. We don't even spend enough time for that. Hell, we won't even do a census because we got conspiracy theories around census, but then we don't get a Boys and Girls Club or we don't get XYZ, we get mad, but we won't even do that. And I'm going to say this, Uncle Clyde, let me even jump to the educational situation. And it pisses me off. We always get mad when Asians, Africans, and Indians come over. And a person who's traveled abroad, those people don't get financial aid. You don't get financial aid in India and Africa. You don't get financial aid there. Either you have the money to pay for school or you don't go to school. I have been in those classrooms, in those colleges, in those countries, at least in Africa, where they didn't even have air conditioner in the libraries and stuff. People are hungry. Do you hear me? For education. They thirst for education. And when they get to America, they cannot believe that these American people do not take advantage of all of the stuff that's available. They say, how can you be failing classes when you get Pell Grant and financial aid? Because again, I let me say this: when we were enslaved and when freedom and education was important to us, we focused on that. When we were going through all the Jim Crow stuff and all of that, that stuff was important to us. But now it's like we have arrived, and you can't tell us nothing. Let me tell you something, Uncle Claude. I have worked in both aspects of secondary education and higher education. And when I tell you, people will fail classes getting these Pell Grants, and my foreign students be like, "What?" And they treated them Pell Grants when they were qualified to get it like gold. You hear me? Gold. They may not have been the smartest, but baby, they would be in that library study. Okay? I mean, it's just night and day. And these are the people we got to compete against globally. So I understand what you're saying, but when we are not a part of the political process, we refuse to be educated on it. When we take for granted these things that we actually have, and then when people from other countries where they don't have that, they appreciate it. They understand how it works, and they understand that this is a stepping stone to get me where I am. And we lose. And this is why I look at stuff like, I could easily be talking about beef sector stuff tonight, but that ain't important right now because, again, who don't like who and who going to Vegas, it ain't going to move the needle, right? But this stuff that we talking about today, this is dealing with policy. This is dealing with reproductive rights. It's dealing with who gets tax cut. It's dealing with whether your student loan going to be forgiven or not. I mean, these are important things.
But see, here's the thing too, Pastor. We were given, we had to fight for it. We were never given anything. We fought for the right to vote, but we didn't take the chance to learn how to vote and how to make our vote count. See, we were so busy rejoicing over the fact that, wow, we're able to vote. And that's a huge deal, no question about it. But we have to know how to make our vote count, and we don't do that. But
our vote don't care about that. We talking about politics now. We have 124 folk in here. But if you talking about Lady Nika or Grown Folk TV and Lemon, baby, it's 700, 800 folk up in there. Again, it's part of the people. And we have to make sure we let people know it's a priority. Because Uncle Clyde, I even think, could Martin Luther King actually do what he did back then now? And I shudder to think not. Because we don't even want to get
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I understand what you're saying, Uncle Clyde, but it has to be a mindset. It has to be a mindset. And we're not politically involved with stuff now. We're not. We don't understand how the criminal justice system works. This is why I keep on telling people the laws for the lawless. I'm like, people will set you up. I mean, if you even look like Humanism, you already at risk. And I don't think people understand that. I mean, you got to know the game. You have to know the game. And I don't think we know the game. And I just think that with the political things, we go for what we know. We go what sounds good and may not be good for us. And and again, going back to that Trump thing, right now, I would love to start a political action network and so on and so forth. But right now, we don't have the time because the church is on fire right now. And we don't have 7 years for that. We got to look for the now. I look at people like Jesse and Al and all of these folk. Great. But once they start getting money and once they start getting popularity, then it's a whole nother issue. So are we going to have the Marcus Garveys where they get arrested and thrown asunder and stripped? Real political power takes cost. Real political power is going to be stripping, and real political power means that you may not get that money and that sponsorship and stuff, because if it's going to be a threat to the status quo, is it going to be a threat to the corporations or politicians, then it's considered a threat. I'm just saying. And I mean, we got to be smarter. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know. It's when it comes to politics, it has to be it's a slow process. It is a slow process.
It is, but we also have to we have to be more on code as a people as well. I mean,
we have to, we gotta hold those political people, like you said, accountable. I'm not voting for you anymore. I'm not coming to the Clybourne. I am tired of this because I'm in South Carolina. I'm still living poor, and you have helped your district, but I don't see stuff going on for South Carolina. And I want somebody else. Let me tell you something. Other people are quick to say, I ain't voting for you, and they get together and they rally. But again, we got to learn how to do that. And we got to.
I'm trying to make. We have to learn the game. We were so quick to just be happy. Oh, we can vote. We didn't take the time to know how to vote. That's a huge problem. And that's some each one teach one thing also. I mean, it's one thing to talk about, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that, but what are you doing to try and teach other people this is what we need to do in order to get to X, Y, and Z? What are we doing?
But I think we lost it. I think the uneducated Fannie Lou Hamer was very, very smart. I think those people in Mississippi went through a whole lot to do that. They understood the Dixiecrats. They understood all of this stuff. But I'm looking at these new people now, and when you have people who think they have arrived because they live in the suburbs and they got great jobs, and then all of a sudden life hits them in the face, then they want to be active. But as long as we have this, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about that Jewish bloc. When they say Masada, we'll never forget, they don't ever forget. They teach their children and their children's children and their children's children's children the struggle. And they don't forget. Baby, we don't teach our kids anything. You know, we get these nice fine houses and these nice fine cars, and we don't go back to our roots because we want to escape that stuff. And the sad part about it, this is the problem. And so our folk are not politically involved. They don't know the struggle. They don't know that that bus didn't come to your house. You know what I'm saying? Because you would walk. They don't understand that segregation was there and people had to get spat on and beat up. So they don't know about those counters because we don't teach them. And I think that's a big part of it as well, Uncle Clyde. We ain't getting Black history in these high schools. If you don't go to HBCU, you barely getting it there.
And a lot of this, let's face it, we have to do this on our own, just like we did back then a lot of times. I mean, when I was going to these places, that's what I call them now. I mean, these so-called schools, they didn't teach us anything about, I was told to my face in high school that my history was not necessary. And we were taught about the Indians. I'm talking about the East Indians. I'm not talking about
the indigenous people who were here.
We were told about the caste system, the Brahmins, and all of that. But we were not taught about our own history. No. I had to do that on my own. We had to actually go into libraries and look up people like Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. If
you have these Republicans, these radical Republicans, you want to be able to do that because we don't want our people to feel bad about what we did in slavery. And so now it's a further disfranchisement. I mean, the gerrymandering of the voting districts till all of this stuff. It's an agenda, and I do believe that Project 2025 is dangerous, and I don't think people have really looked at that. And it's gonna set Black people back. It's gonna set, if you ain't white and Republican, it's gonna be set back because again, these people do not want to lose power. They do not believe in diversity, equality, and inclusion because they don't want to share power. Diversity, equity, inclusion means that, you know what, we're willing to share. We're willing to make sure that education is equal across the board. We're willing to make sure that all Americans are treated equal. They don't want to do that. That's radical.
Well, they never wanted to do that. This country was never built on that. I mean, we know that. No. That's why we have to stay digital. or at least become diligent. They're not.
So what is your
generation not even trying to do that anymore? I mean, let's be fair. The generation after us dropped the ball. They did, no question about it. I mean, look at some of these young people, how they feel. I've never even heard of entitled black folk until now. Never. And they're so lost. It's sad. It just doesn't. You just want to smack them upside the head and say, "Wake up! What is wrong with you? Don't you see that you're being used?"
Let me say this. I have a friend, and she wanted her kids to have the best. They lived in a suburb that was predominantly white, and her kids went to predominantly white high schools, a few black people. And then when it was time to go to college, I mentioned to her, I said, well, you can go to Florida State, University of Florida, University of Central Florida, University of South Florida, Florida International University. But I said, you can go to Florida A&M or Bethune-Cookman College. Oh, those are black schools, though. And I'm like,
it's real.
I'm like, but you're black. Then, hold on, it gets better. Then they went to that school, the orange and blue school in Gainesville.
Yeah.
And found out that, you thought you were a great actress at your high school. But when you got to Gainesville, no, you were second fiddle, and they were very frustrated. And then they really found out that, okay, you're black, but Gainesville, and you're not getting those lead parts. And then racism became real to them.
Yeah, that's the old adage. It's never real until it happens to you, right?
That's it. So my thing is, look, you can go to Florida State or University of Florida, but you go in knowing full well of what's going on and what's happening. And then you shouldn't be afraid to go to school with your people. No, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, didn't you go to black churches? But no. Mom didn't, it was a decision to make them go to their church or not. It wasn't. And again, black churches, as much as I have issues with some of them, but I must admit, education, the value of education, the value of organization, project management, all of that stuff, it came from my black church, as well as my school, but mostly from my black church. And so
we're failing right now.
Yeah. And again, we let me say this, and I blame that too. Our black churches are so pastor focused and not community focused that we have missed the ball. Our churches used to be political, involved in economics. I'm gonna tell you what, in my home county, Donald Trump came into my county and did a whole rally. We have a North, Central, and South NAACP chapter. We have NAACP Central, NAACP South, and North. Not one of them jokers went down there to protest or have a rally, anti-protest or rally. But they was the first, and he came on Martin Luther King Day. But what were we doing? We were too busy eating collard greens and fried chicken. And I don't have a problem with us celebrating our people's cuisine, our heritage, as far as our cuisine and our fine arts and all of that stuff. But baby, King would have been turning over in his grave. Do not even invoke the name of Martin Luther King. Not Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther the King. And you wouldn't even go out there. I said King would have been at that airport with some signs or doing something to confront that. But what y'all doing, eating collard greens and fried chicken and wearing some kente cloth, to commemorate Dr. King? I don't want to hear that. And see, let me say this to you all. You got to get educated. You have to get and education is not always about a degree. It's about the knowledge. Where I'm from, there is a man, and I want you to look him up, because Florida has a lot of civil rights history. People don't think junk wasn't going on in Florida. St. Augustine was a bastion of racism. You know, it was terrible. We got Sundown City sitting right here in Florida today. Groveland, Florida had one of the largest clans in the South. But let me say this. There was a man. His name was Harry T. Moore. He was the president of the NAACP in the state of Florida. This man was from North Florida. He moved to a town called Mims, Florida, and he was a teacher for the Brevard County Public Schools, not Broward, but Brevard County Public Schools. This man fought for teachers' pay equality and better working conditions. He went on to work for the NAACP. He was radical. He wanted to confront and do these things, you know, and help. He would go and he was bold. He was a quiet man, but a bold man, and he meant what he said, and he said what he meant. The NAACP fired him because he was radical in their eyes. The Klan thought he still was with the NAACP. And on Christmas Eve, they bombed his house. He and his wife died. His daughter lived because she was out of town with some friends. They killed the man. Come to find out that the NAACP fired him. The NAACP wound up using all of his ideals, and now they treat him as a martyr, but yet they fired him. And now they have all of these scholarship funds for him. Y'all need to really look up that man. See, when I think about that, that's a person who is in my neck of the woods. And he fought and he died for it.
Sounds very similar to Fred Hampton.
Harry Moore. We don't hear about that. But he was the first and only person to die for the NAACP. Harry T. Moore.
And you know what? Let's be fair too. That even that name is so outdated. It's ridiculous. The advancement of colored people. We're still colored people.
Yeah, people have that, and I get it. But again, you got the Urban League and you got the NAACP. And the sad part about the Urban League and the NAACP is they cannot get any youth because you got these people who are so hell-bent on doing things their way. They don't let new people in. And again, this is why I even look at the beef sector and I look at this. But my thing is this. If you were an older person, you always want to get those young people in.
Yeah.
And you give them the history and a foundation. So when they start doing their thing, they have a compass point. They have a guide point. You know, and I think you got to have both. You got to have a foundation. You got to know why it was started so you'll know where you're going in the future. I believe that. But, you know, these people have gotten so wealthy and rich and they gotten so in their ways that now it's like, well, is the organization even worth having? If it's going to be a bunch of bougie folk who are not, look, let me say this. You can't help people who you think you're better than. And black people, we got to get out of this stuff where we just think we this and this and this and the third. And I hear the beef set too. Oh, you were raised in the trailer park. I sure was. And I don't have a problem with it. I don't forget where I came from. So therefore, I can go back and help people. I can go back and sit in a house, you know, that's not the best condition. I have gone to the Surrey counties and the Smithfield, Virginias, and Franklin, Virginias, and sat in homes where people were eating off of 10 plates. I've done that. Because you can't help people who you think you're better than. And sometimes we forget.
See, we have to. That's a mentality that is definitely not born of us, because we were always taught before you're anything, you're a child of the Most High God, no matter where you came from.
Yeah,
that's just
that's what we used to been taught. That's what we used to do.
Then we have to do a better job of passing down that example.
Yeah,
because we're not going to be here, and it's going to be left to another generation. And if we fail, I mean, now once we do teach that, it's up to them to hold on to it.
Yeah.
We can only do much, but if we're not careful, we're gonna have a people who are just so far from reality that this whole race will be in trouble.
I'm looking at my books now. Black Like Me, The Miseducation of the Negro. All of those books, just prophetic in nature, just so prophetic in nature. And we gotta know who we are. We gotta know who we are, and we gotta know the argument between Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, because that's very important. I just think that we have to know James Farmer, who went to Wiley University and part of the great debaters. That's some serious stuff. You know, we got to know that education was not a luxury of ours, and it's still new. And let me say, the saddest part about let me you know, my parents went to segregated schools. They got hand-me-down band uniforms. They got hand-me-down books after the majority schools wore them out. They just sent them to the black schools. They didn't have the best facilities, but that generation were the bulk of our doctors, pharmacists, lawyers, and those people excelled. My generation had to deal with integrating these schools. You know, I went to elementary school in the 70s. I was bused. A lot of those teachers weren't happy to see me because they were forced to do something, and that had an issue. Now we have all of this technology and all of this stuff, and I don't know if you all have read in the newspaper if you're from Texas, but math scores have plummeted drastically. Minorities and Spanish children especially. And I want y'all to listen to this. I know somebody right now, a teacher was telling me that kids don't even know their address no more. Couldn't even tell you their phone numbers.
That's ridiculous.
Technology is not always the best thing. And we got to realize that most of these tech giants, they don't allow their kids to use a lot of this technology. And there's a reason for that. And I'm noticing that a lot of people whose kids go to private schools where they use technology in a minimal way, but yet they have to read and do that, those kids excel. And I'm not anti-technology, but it shares something to me when these tech giants limit their kids to this.
Yeah, because they know how powerful that technology is. They know. Listen, there's supposed to be a balance to everything, and that's also what's lacking in our community too.
Yeah,
we don't have balance. That and it's in everything. When you look at our culture, look at the music, the so-called music that's come out. When you look at everything that regards our culture now, there is no balance to it whatsoever. Listen to what so-called hip-hop music is. There's no balance.
Nope.
See, when we were growing up, for every NWA, there was a Public Enemy. There was a KRS-One. There was a Kid and Play. There was Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. There was LL Cool J. We had so many different variables. Now it's all cut and paste.
It's gatekeepers. You got gatekeepers everywhere.
Absolutely terrible.
But let me say this to you all. Let me give you all a little secret. Make sure your children can write. Make sure your kids know the difference between a complex, compound, complex, and a simple sentence. Make sure you know your kids know the foundation of punctuation. As a person who dealt with higher education, folk had issues with semicolons and periods and where quotation go. Let me say this, you all. If you don't get foundational stuff, you're going to be lost. Make sure your children are reading books, fiction and nonfiction, and knowing how to get the main ideal, knowing what people are trying to get. And I'm telling you all this because our kids are failing drastically at standardized tests. And we know about those standardized tests, but my thing is they need to know how to read and get the main point. Who are the characters? What are these characters doing? What are the roles of women? What is the period of the time? What's going on? I just read a book, and it's really funny because one of my relatives' kids was reading this book, and it's called Fever. It's called Fever, the fever of 1793 in Philadelphia. The book was phenomenal, but it really was dealing with the role of women, the role of Black women, the role of men, misogynistic thinking, unscientific reasoning. They thought they would, and this is before the stethoscope, but this was dealing with yellow fever. They would put bombs in the air to clear the air. They would bloodlet people. They would do all of this stuff. And the bottom line is it was yellow fever caused by a mosquito. And it took people until the 1920s to figure out what it was, in 1930s to even get a vaccine for it. And yellow fever still exists in Africa and South America. But again, it just goes to show you. And the logic and reasoning came with the two characters when the Black character wanted to have her nephew's blood drained, and the other character said no. The French doctors said that they need to get plenty of liquids, plenty of sunshine to get stronger. And she said, and I would trust the French doctors because they have lived in the West Indies and they deal with this every year. But this doctor only dealt with this 3 times out of this decade or what have you. And that was deductive, logical reasoning. Little things like that, critical thinking, knowing how to pull out main ideals and themes. It is important because I'm being real with you all.
You're absolutely right.
It's that kind of simple stuff, Uncle Clyde, that we are missing. And again, this stuff is on standardized tests, and our kids are not getting it. Capitalization. I mean, I'm being real. Capitalization. I've had kids to put lowercase i's on some things in college. And I'm like, you will never use a lowercase I unless it's in a word or if it's a new word like iPhone. Then you can do that. But you all, this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. People don't know how to use dictionaries. It's that. And this is what we're competing against. So my thing is, you all, folk want people ignorant for a reason. And let's go back to this political thing. If you don't know how to listen to people, then, and this is why certain political people love the uneducated, the people who don't think logically, because they can win with untruth and bravado. But no slight, Uncle Claude, I listened to the closing arguments tonight of why somebody should be elected. One candidate gave me proposals and policies and what they will do. The other candidate gave me criticizing the other candidate, being critical of the other candidate and what they did. They're living in the past. And the question was, what will you do? And when we can't listen to those critical things, and when people can't answer questions and they avoid questions and they gaslight, that's some serious stuff.
Yeah, but here's the thing. One person was actually debating, and the other person, let's face it, was playing to his fan base.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing. And the sad part is he could say anything. That's the one thing about these Trumpers. He can say anything to them, and they'll go for it like it's the gospel from Jesus.
Yeah.
It is scary. He's a rock star. He's not even a politician. He's a rock star. It's scary.
And that's the sad part. That's the sad part. And was I impressed with Biden's performance? No. But I can't hate the man's policies. I can't hate the man's policies. He did speak on policies, and he did answer the questions. Slow as it may have been, he still answered it. And so I think at the end of the day, I'm not ecstatic about either candidate. But I am going to go with the candidate that has policy, experience, and I am going to go with the party that is of my interest right now. All of the interests may not be my interest, but if the majority of the interests are my interests, then I'm going to go with that. And that's it. I'm going to go with the party where I see people who look like me. Now, that brings up a whole nother can of worms too.
Well, I was about to say that.
My thing is, I would rather deal with that than look over to the other side and see Stepford Wives and Tim Scott's and all of these people shucking and jiving. And not only is Tim Scott a gaslighter, but he's a grifter. And I think grifters are dangerous. He's a grifter. And again, I look at the beef sector and I look at some of this stuff and I'm like, oh God, it's the same stuff. It's the same stuff. Nobody ain't running for president, but it's the same stuff.
Well, let's face it, you know that social media is a microcosm of what's going on in the real world. I mean, we know that.
Yeah.
And let's be fair also. And obviously, I'm not disagreeing with you when it comes to that. I mean, obviously, my opinion, both of these parties could care very less about us, but I will choose the candidate who's not going to start a civil war. I mean, let's be fair on that. We saw what happened on January 6th. That man committed high treason. By letter of the law, he should have been. Listen, he's a Benedict Arnold. But if I say that, I'm out of pocket, right?
And I love how Biden kept pushing Trump on that World War I cemetery situation, and he wouldn't let it go. And he said, "No, you did say that." And Trump was trying to just do that. And then I think Biden was very smart to say 44 of your people said they will not vote for you, including your vice president. And I thought that spoke volumes as well. I just think that Biden seemed like he wasn't as strong as he could have been. And I think it's almost like me. It's almost like me going to see Patti LaBelle. And I know how Patti LaBelle was when she was like at the pinnacle, But now even Patti LaBelle ain't doing what Patti LaBelle used to do.
Well,
and I think that's where we are. I think that's where we are because I know what you can do, but I'm not getting that today.
The scarier part for me is I don't trust Kamala Harris as far as I can throw her either, because she's already told you what she won't do for black folk, and the only reason that she is there is she tried to portray herself.
So you trust Tim Scott, or would you trust?
Listen, I don't trust any of them.
Or see this?
Stop that! I never said I trusted any of them.
That's what I'm saying. So my thing is this: even though I may not, I agree with what you're saying, Uncle Clyde, but again, I would rather have her for vice president than who Trump getting ready to pick, because you know what it's going to be. And so I think we are at a crossroads where we got to really be like, I got to hold my breath. But at the end of the day, at least you have some Obamas and some people who can say, look, hey, because it ain't no way that we can have somebody to even get into a meeting with some of these people and some of these vice presidential candidates. And I'm going to tell you what, I don't think Donald Trump is going to choose somebody from who they think they're going to choose. I think he's going to get a wild card. I don't think he's going to choose any of these people who are jockeying. I mean, he may, but I would be very surprised if he do.
I know he's not choosing that Haley chick. He's not choosing
Haley. It may be, and I'm surprised even with Rubio. See, this is the thing: you have denigrated and just demolished these people, and so all of a sudden Rubio is in the running, and then the people who he's choosing, they're just pick-me's. They are just rubber stamps.
The scary part, I will say the scariest part is
not been any more disappointing than Pence and everything. I think Kamala probably has had more visibility as a vice president, because usually besides Biden with Obama, vice presidents have really been silent unless they was goofy and dumb. So again, we look at her like, but I don't know. I'm not all hate Kamala Harris. I'm really not. And we have had vice presidents under people that have been doofy and dumb. We've had Pence, who was supposed to be evangelical, but yet almost doing everything Donald Trump wants, except trying to solidify his win. Y'all, I'm not going to go there. I'm just not going to go there. Am I happy with a lot of stuff she does? No. But I'm not going there. I'm not going to throw her. Look, now I can't do that.
Now listen, at this stage, to be fair, she's more qualified right now than Biden is. She really is. At least she can carry a damn sentence. I mean, Biden, you're almost afraid that he's going to go to sleep in the damn thing.
Yeah.
And she is. I'm not saying she's not qualified. I just said
this is the thing with politics. You're not going to like everybody you get.
I understand.
Sometimes you got to like what you get until better comes.
But I have to be able to trust you.
Work with them. Huh?
I have to be able to trust you also.
So you'll trust Sarah Huckabee Sanders?
See, don't do that. Don't do that.
But see, that's what we're talking about. We don't like who we have in the Democratic Party, but this is who we have now. I wish Nancy Pelosi was younger, darn it, because she was a darn good House leader. But I like Hakeem Jeffries, and it is what it is. Some people don't like him, but I think he's doable because, again, you're dealing with these older people now. You got younger folk, and they have to be molded into it. Everybody's not going to be perfect on day one.
No, I understand that. I mean, it's all a progress.
Yeah.
And let's be fair, if the Democratic Party is smart, they would be grooming Miss Crockett to run for higher office, but that's another chapter in another book.
Yeah. Somebody like Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. I mean, it's a lot of women who are qualified.
The Democratic Party has to get younger. They have to, they definitely have to step up their game because the Republicans right now have a stranglehold on it. And they have to do something to revitalize their fan base. They have to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to have to really go that route. But right now, I don't think that other side is ready. They are having fights within their own party. You have these radical Republicans who will stop anything that is bipartisan. You have these people who will do one thing today and do things tomorrow. You got like people like Lindsey Graham, which I'm like, oh my God. You know, you talked about how you hate Trump. Now you are kissing his tail. Then even Mitch McConnell, I'm like, are you serious? Come on, Mitch McConnell. I can't believe that this man who you did not like, now you are shaking his hand. It's crazy. So, Uncle Clyde, I just think that in the end, we're going to have to work out stuff in our own party, and we may have to hold our breath and our noses, but we got to do what we have to do because, again, even though you may not like Kamala Harris, but like I said, you think Sarah Huckabee Sanders is going to be any better? You think these people going to be? No, they're not going to be any better. They've told us who they are numerous times, you know. So what do we do, you know? And I think we just got to work with what we have.
Hey, listen, we're going to have to hold our noses, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, Uncle Clyde, I'm getting ready to go watch some of these reviews and things. I'm glad you came up here. Uncle Clyde, I'm just really passionate tonight. I'm really passionate tonight. I have never been at a point in my political voting life where I'm like, even though I don't like this performance, the policy was there, and I'm not going to do it with this gaslighting. But what disappoints me is that I think that this particular thing is not going to move the needle. And if there were some Democrats who were or independents rather, not Democrats, but independents that were leaning towards Trump, they may, because Trump, again, some people, it's not about policy, it's about performance. It's not about policy, it's about performance. So my thing is, some people are going to vote on performance and not policy. And so I just hope that people listen to what has been said, listen to the answers and what people did not say, and go with that. Because if people really listen, Biden has better substance over Trump. I mean, it's a major difference.
I have a question.
But performance-wise, Trump did well performance-wise, but Biden did well when it came to policy and substance. He kicked it up a little bit on that second half when he started to attack, but, you know, performance-wise, Trump won that. I ain't gonna lie. Performance-wise. Go ahead, Uncle Clyde.
Do you think there'll be another debate?
I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna be feasible for Biden. I just think this is the best we're gonna get.
That could be a problem.
I think he really needs to push it, and I think I think the party has to do better. I think they have to really run. You know, I know people don't like running negative ads, but damn it, do what you gotta do. I mean, you know, we can't. Okay, well, and see, this is the thing. The Democrats always try to take the moral high ground, which is noble, but the Republicans don't give a damn. And again, I think the Democrats are Charlie Brown, and the Republicans they're Lucy.
Oh yeah, politically.
Always hold that football, and Charlie Brown always fall for the okie doke, and she always takes the ball away. They wouldn't allow the Democrats to get their Supreme Court nominees in. But they said and made a promise and reneged right on that promise and did the exact opposite. Their people were having issues, but they let them people stay. I mean, they let that man from New York, that whole scammer, stay.
That was terrible.
But yet, your boy Al in Minnesota, he could have stayed in. I mean, Trump did the same thing that Al did. Al was I heard he was a good representative. He was a good senator. Al Franken. They said he was great. But see what I'm saying? Because we play that moral game, and again, you know, we don't go tit for tat. And I think that's going to be a problem. And I think Democrats need to come and get unified. One thing I would say about Republicans is they do get unified. Democrats get unified, but like I was looking at this, them going after Biden with this Palestinian thing, this free Palestine. I'm like, okay, that's good and fine. And I understand you get upset about that. But do you think Trump is going to do any better? Do you think that Trump is going to take care of any about them Palestinians? He said on tonight that Biden was helping the Palestinians and da 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 da. That man is all about Israel, and he said that Israel didn't do the job. So what he's saying is they should have bombed Palestine and Hamas and wiped it off of the map because he is pure pro-Israel. Well, so while he's up here being activist, that's what you could have got, or that's what you can get if you don't. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we know Trump has been a huge supporter of Netanyahu for years, so that doesn't shock me at all. But I get what you're saying. I'm not saying you're wrong. We have to wake up as a people. We're gonna have to be on code. We don't have to agree with everything, but we do have to stay on code.
I think we need
until we learn to do that.
I think we have to demand. I mean, I'm talking about serious demands where if we feel that we're not being heard or disrespected, we flood them calls. Let me tell you something about these Republican folk. If Hannity or when Rush Limbaugh was living, if he said, call your congressman or woman, they called. And we better get that chutzpah when we get crazy and hear crazy stuff, we need to call. I'm going to tell you, I listen to the Urban News Network, and out of all the people, now I used to listen to Joe Madison a great deal. But now my go-to person is Clay Kane. I listen to Clay Kane. I like Clay Kane, not only because he's gay, but this man is smart. I like Clay Kane. No answer. So when I listen to Urban Broadcast, I listen to Clay Kane. If you don't know who he is, he's on Sirius Radio, Urban View. I think they have Karen Hunter and this other lady, but I listen to Clay Kane. I like how Clay Kane talks. I like how he brings it across. I like Clay Kane a lot. I don't know if you know who he is. I don't know if you know.
I don't listen to that network, but I do know that we have to be able to hold these people's feet to the fire.
Well,
we also have to learn how to spend our money wiser.
Yeah.
As well.
Uncle Scott, please get his book. Clay Kane has a book called Gaslighters and Grifters. Very good book. Please get Clay Kane's book.
You know what? I will do that.
And he talks about Tim Scott and Clarence Thomas. He really talks about how they are gaslighting the people and how they are grifters. And let me do this real quickly while I am on. I want to hold on.
Okay.
Give me a quick minute.
No problem.
So, a grifter, I'm going to read this definition. A person who engages in petty or small-scale swindling. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you one more.
Go ahead.
I'm getting it right now. A grifter is a con artist, someone who is able to obtain money by swindling or tricking others. In politics, the word refers to people who use the political process as a way to enrich themselves. I want y'all to know that. So that's a grifter. And last one. Give me a minute. And I'm really serious about this because we need to know. Let me see. Gaslighting is a psychological term that we hear more and more. It covers serious emotional mental abuse, manipulation techniques whereby the perpetrator controls the victim by invalidating their perceptions of reality. In particular, the term political gaslighting is spreading in a new wave of political science, mainly in Western Europe and United States. So it's manipulating people. And we saw a lot of gaslighting tonight. So
that's his whole MO. I mean, let's face it, because he has no real contingency plan for anything. Everything is gaslighting. Everything is theatrics. I mean, that's who he's been since the 80s. Nothing has changed. And here's the funny thing: people who really know remember that Trump actually started out as a Democrat.
Yeah, he did. And let me say this, Honeysuckle. Biden don't have nothing to do with that. First of all, that interest rate is that's oh God, what's the Fed? The Feds decide that. The sad part would be if gas 19. Look, she said child milk about to be $19 gas. No. Let me say this: if it was, people will still have a job. And I want y'all to remember this because we have a real short memory span. But if I recall during COVID, it was the Democrats who were trying to get y'all the payments. It was the Republicans who were saying that y'all don't need that money because y'all going to spend it on liquor and y'all going to spend it on gambling and all of that stuff. That's what the Republicans thought of you all. Those Democrats was trying to put money in your pocket because of this pandemic. See how quickly we forget that. These folk are not for you. And they think that y'all all do, look, all y'all want is food stamps and stuff. And I'm like, $1,000? How you think $1,000 is going to be, baby, people's mortgages and rent is over $1,000.
Way over. It's not even
It's out of touch with reality. And again, this is what I'm saying. If you are 1%er, then this conversation is way beyond you. If you're 1%er, but if you are the 99%, child, y'all better wake up. Y'all better wake up. And let me say this: after every Republican, a Democrat had to come behind them and fix the economy. Bill Clinton had to do it with Ronald Reagan. Obama had to do it with George Bush, and Biden had to come and do it with Donald Trump.
Obama had the best economy. Is not even close.
They don't even talk about that because you giving props to that man.
I give credit where it's due. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah. See, that's all I'm saying. Because we don't want to get it. And Donald Trump's whole legacy was to tear down what Obama did, not realizing that he was coasting on Obama's legacy.
Well, that's the only reason Trump was even put in office. That was, these guys figured, well, we gave you 2 terms of Obama, so we're going to get X, Y, Z of Trump. That's the only reason he even got in there, because this is such a ratchet and racist country. But no one wants to say anything otherwise. Then you're upsetting the apple cart. But the truth is the truth.
You know what? That's a good question. I did not like Clinton's criminal justice reform. That hurt him. I'm just being real with it. And he was a Democrat. I think there are a few things that I don't like from Obama and Clinton, but I think Obama's biggest thing was the Osama bin Laden situation, getting the economy back on track after that Bush situation, bringing dignity back to the White House. You never had issues with his kids. You didn't hear all of this foolishness. You didn't hear a lot of stuff going on. Nobody was getting drunk. And because Jenna was something else. Honey. Jenna Bush.
Oh, both of those girls were terrible.
Yeah. So, you didn't hear all of that crazy stuff. And you know what's really funny, y'all? The Bushes are not Texans. They are from North. I think they're from Massachusetts. The Bushes are a New England family. They moved to Texas, but again, you can do that. It's just a lot of stuff. I think Obama did the best with what he had. I think Obama had more obstacles than Bill Clinton. I think Obama had to deal with racism. He could not cry about it. He just had to deal with it, and I think he dealt with it in a methodical manner. Connecticut, not Massachusetts, Connecticut. Okay, PDP, thank you for helping out. I know he's from the Northeast. So, well, Uncle Clark, man, I got to get off this box, but thank you for coming on, and we're going to see what happens. I think that Biden did the best he could. I think he was slow, but his policies were on point. I think Donald Trump was fast, but he was lying, and he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I think Biden did better in the second half. It was some stuttering and that raspy throat, like he had laryngitis. I wish he would have spoken above a whisper sometimes, and some of them facial features and all of that was looking crazy. But at the end of the day, his ending argument convinced me. What Donald Trump did as an ending argument was not an argument. I don't know what it was. It was complaints, and it was a lot of gloom and doom. So that's my thoughts. Any last thoughts, Uncle Clark?
Well, number one, hold your noses, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be there's going to be a lot of BS flinging around. But what I will say, no, all joking aside, is if you want to still have a United States of America and not have a Civil War number 2, you don't want to put the orange-faced bastard in the White House. That's all I'm going to say on that.
All right. Well, with that said, thank you, Uncle Claude. Thank you, all the ushers, for coming on in, and y'all have a good night. I will talk to y'all later. Peace and love. Thank you, Uncle Claude, again.
Thank you, Pastor Jay Wilson, and take care, everyone. Stay safe, and God bless.